Hello, day 11 of our Advent extravaganza crafting session. Today we are going to make Carol's Russian tea cakes. So Carol lived across the street from me growing up, and I acquired this recipe card file in the 1970s when I was a member of the 4-H troop there, and we learned cooking. It's full of recipes from my childhood. Not all the recipes, though, I discovered, because I just looked through. And of the things that we're planning on cooking this Christmas, I found most of the recipes, not all. Russian tea cakes was one. I believe that Carol's cookies were always made with walnuts, but two in my household, in my distant household, my kids and their kids, are allergic to walnuts. So I used pecans. We're going to be making cranberry fruit bread. Look at that messy old thing. It almost makes me nostalgic just looking at the mess that these recipes are in. Blue ribbon fudge, this is one of my recipes. And chess pies, that's another recipe we'll be making. Sugar cookies. So watch out, these are coming out of my little recipe file. Today though, Russian tea cakes. And this recipe, you will need a wet bowl and a dry ingredient bowl because we blend them separately and then join them together. You need to make sure you have softened butter. I pulled mine out a little too late, so we've had to do some softening experiments, and I still may have to cut it in with the pastry cutter, we'll see. But softened butter. I am doubling this recipe because I know that we need a lot of cookies for these tins we're putting together, so I'm doubling the recipe. But you need butter, sugar, and the recipe will be in the info, the half recipe. Butter, sugar, flour, salt, vanilla, and the nuts, and that's it. So it's a relatively low ingredient list. The first step is to put your butter into your liquid mixing bowl. I'm just going to get the little excess from our. And to be honest, we were microwaving this to soften it. Let's hope that it was effective without being too effective. They're a little bit softer, so that's good. We need butter. And I'm going to go ahead and just see how... Oh, we're pretty soft here. Good. We have to whip the butter. And I could use a stand mixer. I'm not a huge fan of the stand mixer. It takes a little longer to do this stuff by hand and a little more muscle. But it's a little bit of a workout. And, you know, why not? Except for the tallow. Remember the tallow. Half a cup, I'm using a cup of sugar. I'm just going to give you the recipe on the card, but remember I'm doubling everything. So we had 1 cup butter, half a cup of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla for one portion of this. And then we are supposed to cream this together. And I'm going to muscle cream this together. It's not that. If you want to see, there they are. It's not too firm. It's kind of the right amount of firm, if you ask me. So I'm just going to squish in the sugar. And if my arm gets tired with the wooden spoon, I'll move on to the pastry cutter. Feel free to use a hand mixer or a stand mixer if you desire, because it will have no impact on this whatsoever. You'll notice these last two recipes, the dumpster fire cookies and these Russian tea cakes have no leavening in them. So therefore, when I form these into balls and put them on the baking sheet, they're going to stay where placed. There's no poofing up process in these recipes. After this, all the recipes after this, not so much. Just a little too firm for the wooden spoon, so we're going to go to the pastry cutter to get this well blended. Plus there's quite a bit in here which isn't helping my process. Come on, you. And I just remucked up my hands. Alright, so wet ingredients blended. Now to the dry ingredients. In this bowl I have 2 1/4 cups of flour. I'm going to add to that a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Make sure I get all of that. And 1 cup of nuts. Now let's move this out of the way. I'm gonna chop these, but not too finely. So just rough chop. When you rough chop, there's plenty of fine nut dust that accumulates on your board. But you also get sort of medium, bigger chunks. And I personally love my Russian tea cakes with chunks of nuts in them. Not whole nuts, but pieces, so that you can enjoy a little bit of nut with your cookie. I don't live in a household that loves nuts, so for years and years I haven't been able to put, and then between that and the allergies, I haven't been able to put walnuts in my goodies for a long time, and oh boy do I miss it. I love walnuts and cookies and things. Alright, so 1 cup pecans in this case. Pecans. And we're going to mix that up. And I've used all my utensils. Oh, here we go. Here's the infamous blue spatula to get these blended. Mix your dry ingredients. Do a pretty thorough job here, just so, because this is going to be more labor intensive. The more I can pre-blend the 2 halves, the better I am. And then we're going to combine them in the same bowl. And I'm going to put my wet on top of my dry so that I can sort of help to distribute that in. Okay, I'll show you, give you a peek at the bowl before I blend it. So, I know I'm making noise with this bangy stuff. Alright, there is the wet in with the dry. So it's quite a bit of, especially given that I've doubled this recipe. But it's going to be a pretty dry, when you first mix this together, it's roughly the consistency of pie crust. And we are going to put this in the refrigerator to chill before I roll them into balls. Start squishing these together to make a finished cookie. Seems to be the theme of the day. Get your hands in it, doesn't it? My handy dandy assistant has just returned to the room after completing their last college final. Here is the finished dough. I'm going to cover this, put it into the refrigerator for about 20 minutes to a half an hour, and then we'll come back and I'll roll them into balls and then into some powdered sugar, put them in the oven to bake. So out of the oven, they don't look very much different. You've got to be pretty careful, and I would highly suggest, did you see me just almost burn myself there? I would highly suggest not checking for brown. It's just barely brown on the bottom. They should keep their shape. Take them hot off the baking sheet with the spoon and very gently, because they're quite crumbly, and just give them a little toss in powdered sugar. Put them on a cooling rack. To cool. 40 cookies is a single batch. Now it's really cooling off. I have to press this. Oh, see the gentle warning? That one's going to be eaten because it busted open.